I don't know. I think he spent a lot of time here though too. I think he works for Microsoft or something.
Okay.
Unfortunately, unfortunately for him. Just kidding.
Mm. Well, hey, I went ahead and started the streaming, so don't be saying any nasty things about anybody that isn't on the call, I guess. Um, this is our June meeting, and got maybe an item or two here to chat about, but um, definitely wanted to get the normal the regular stuff out of the way. And I see Brian is on. Brian, do you have our secretary's report for us for April?
Yes, I do, sir.
Okay, can you share it?
I will.
Okay.
There we go.
Okay.
It was a short, quick meeting just before Cocoa Fest there. Um, in attendance there, we started the meeting at 7:30 with Jim, John Mark, Mobley, Richard Bear, Chris Hawks was there, Greg Castora, Bruce. I always mess up your last name. How's it pronounced? George? George?
First.
Um, yep, thank you. Grant Leedy, Salvador, Michael, and myself there. Um,
Okay.
we start out the meeting there with me reading their secretary's report with the Jim. I don't think there was any issues with it, so Jim made a motion to approve. Greg approved it, Grant seconded it, and nobody opposed. From there, we led into a treasurer's report where Jim gave us a summary of current charges and account balances. Um, then no one had any issues there, so we moved to approve it. And again, Grant moved to approve, and Richard seconded it with nobody opposed.
Okay.
Old business. There was the announcement again from the previous meeting there about the timing of the auction and trying to wrap it up before dinner. And Grant just made an announcement that that would be happening at the beginning of the auction, so that way we could try to wrap it up in time uh, uh, before dinner started. There was a motion. I think should don't know if I had the name in here. I didn't write it down. I'm sorry. We had a motion to approve a charge to help boost the Cocoa Discord server, and Grant moved to approve it, and Greg seconded it. There was nobody opposed to that, so we approved that charge. And then Grant just gave a short little summary again about Cocoa Fest, the start times, so that would be starting on Thursday for setup, and that we would get started at noon on Friday, go all day Saturday with a teardown on Sunday. Um, with new business, the only new business we had was Salvador had mentioned that he had a laptop to offer to the club to use for the Cocoa Fest. And with that, we didn't really have any other new business, so Jim moved forward to close the meeting. Grant moved to approve it. Brian seconded it, and nobody opposed. And we wrapped up in about 30 minutes there at 8 o'clock.
Okay. So I did record the April meeting, so I'm thinking we probably ought to have the whoever did the approval of that one or the motion of that one thing. So you should be able to find it from um the the the
Okay,
video.
the ad there then. Okay,
Yeah.
yep, I'll go
I mean,
back.
I'm happy. I mean, obviously somebody else will have to make a motion and a second to approve, but I think it's probably okay to approve the minutes, but I think we should, with the caveat that you should probably go back and clean that up.
Okay, I'll
So
make a note of
Well,
myself here.
it's indicating that Grant started it and Greg then seconded it. It looks
yeah, you're
like.
right. It did. The grant would make have made the motion and Greg seconded. That's right. So that I just think it needs to be because yeah, because you're right. Because Grant doesn't approve. He made the motion and Greg seconded it, and then everybody voted in favor of it. That's a good point, Rich.
I need to have who moved to
You
approve the charge, and then Grant
you
made the
you
approval.
did.
So
You have
yeah.
it there. I brought it up.
Oh,
I
okay.
brought. I know I brought it up, but I can't. I I'm 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 the meeting leader, so I can't make motions.
Yep.
So I put the note in there and asked if we wanted to do it. Otherwise,
Okay.
I was going to try and find a way to reverse the charge. So Grant was the one that actually made the motion.
Okay.
So I think it's probably you should just change the wording down below. It's Grant made a motion to approve Grant moved to approve the charge and Greg seconded it. That's the only things we need to know. So you got it.
Okay.
Sorry. Rich is right. You had it in there. So any other questions or concerns or comments?
Well, now, this is with a smile on my face. We had a discussion last month about the word oppose, and it's still misspelled a couple of places, but it's right
Yeah.
in one place.
It's right. Opposed. It's opposed.
Why can't I remember that? I guess I guess
Is this
56 years of opposed is
you should put a thing in your like they used to have it in Word where you could put if you write a word it comes up and tries to change it for you. Maybe you just need to have it change opposed to opposed for your on your copy.
What we discovered last month was that opposed with an A is actually a real word, and so
it is.
So
but I don't think anybody uses it.
Okay, you can teach your software that.
maybe I need to type this in and then I'll run it through ChatGPT to proof it for me then, and then we'll broadcast.
I was gonna say, what if you're opposed to using grammar checkers and just kidding.
Well, doesn't a battery have two opposing poles or something?
That's still
like
O. That's still O.
That's
It is. It's
okay.
OPPOSING. Yep.
Mm.
Yeah, we looked it up. Rich is right. I looked it up. I mean, we can all look it up again, but I looked it up and it was similar, but not the same. I forget what that was, but anyway, it was. It's not something. I know. I had never used it in a sentence. So.
Oh, so you mean all those times that I was opposing, I really wasn't opposing? Then you mean? 'Cause I thought it was. I'm just kidding.
It's okay. Okay. Well, if there's with the changes, would love to have a motion and a second to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve.
Greg has moved.
I'll second.
And Rich has seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Okay, so I have some treasurer information. So there's two parts to this. I'll just give a quick for the treasurer's report. I'll just give a current balance for our treasury because all of the charges and everything are wrapped up in the conversation around the fest itself, because that's where all the puts and takes are, and that's probably a longer discussion. I'll do that as part of our Cocoa Fest updates. But wanted to let everybody know that I don't know that we need a motion for this. I just wanted everybody to know that we have $14,159.57 in our treasury. And outside of fest purchases, the only things that we have that are recurring charges is we have a $16 charge every month for our hosting, and we have some interest coming in, about $30, about $33 in May. It was $33 in April. It was $39 because we've got like a 4% interest on our savings account. So in a normal state, those are the only two things that we have every month. And obviously $15 or $16 is less than the 30 some dollars of interest. So we're actually running at steady state, we're running a $16 or $17 positive every month. So the interest payment pays for our hosting charges for the website. But currently we have, I think I mentioned it, $14,159.57 in the treasury between PayPal and in our bank account, or both our bank accounts, the checkings and the savings. So anybody have any, I'm happy to answer any questions. I've got more detail when we get to the Cocoa Fest financials, but if anybody has questions in general, let me know.
Is that up from last time or down from last time?
It's down primarily because of we always have a lot more in the treasury right before the fest, and then of course once we pay all the bills, the treasury takes a bump down. So I as far as this versus last year or something like that, I could probably pull those numbers. I don't know what it was exactly this time last year versus here, or what the trend is on a year-to basis. It generally has been that we've been like 14 to 16, sometimes almost $17,000 in the treasury over the last few years. So we're low, and as you can expect, part of that is because of the fest. Any other questions? Okay. Let's see. I think so. I'm gonna provide the updates for the fest on the financials. So I'll go ahead and share here. Let me take care of things for a second here.
Hey, so sorry, this
Yeah.
is David D. So real quick question.
Yeah.
So I heard you say that the treasury is low because of was there an issue?
Well, there's two things. So let me just go ahead and bring up the reporting
Okay.
here. So give me a second so I can figure
Okay.
out where my share screen thing is. Here it is, share and financial report. Okay. So let me see if everybody can see this. Okay.
Yeah.
So here's the real story. So this year we did not break even on the fest. So to answer your question, David, there's where some of our deficit is. So you can see through here on the fest, the table purchases brought in a little under $2,500. Dinners, which are a pass through, $1,500. Dues, and then the auction brought in about $3,000, actually a little over $3,000, for a total incoming funds of a little under $7,100. The venue was almost $9,500, and then we had some miscellaneous expenses for a total of just a little under 10 grand. So the over under is a little under $3,000, or a little under $2,800. It's going to be a little bit more. I'm double checking. So I know I've double checked the fest numbers, or the auction numbers, and they're correct. And the dues numbers are correct. And the dinner numbers are a little low. So there's a couple dinners that came in that day that I need to add in. So that number is probably going to go up to $1,700 or whatnot. On the converse, I'm validating the tables because even though we recorded or a little under $2,500 for the tables, a couple tables were supposed to be paid day of, and they didn't come and they didn't pay. So we had a couple tables that were left unsold. So there's about $150, $200. That number's a little under 150, 200. In the grand scheme of things, the dinners kind of made up for that. I mean, the amount of money that we got for dinner is a little bit more than what we're seeing here, and the tables are a little bit under. So I got to validate, but overall, they didn't move the needle that much, and so we're about $2,800 below. So we were, prior to, like, at the end of last year's fest, we were running about $1,700, and now we're about 14, like I said, 14, or sorry, not 1,700, $17,000, and then right now we're about a little over $14,000. So we're about $3,000 low in the treasury from this fest. So doesn't mean we're not going to run a fest next year, but we do need to do some rethinking on how we handle the finances. There were a couple things that are easy. They're easy things that we can adjust for next year. We rented the room across the hall, but we didn't really take advantage of it because we could have moved everybody into those unsold tables that people didn't show up for, and that's $200 a day. So that's a $400 charge that we don't have to take on next year. And then I asked Grant to go back to the venue and see if we can negotiate for a little bit better terms for the 2026 fest. But that's probably not going to get us all the way down to zero. There are a couple things that hurt us this year that were kind of unavoidable. We did originally have some sponsorship, which was pulled away at the last minute because of the political climate between Canada and the United States. And so that I think that's either $500 or $1,000, maybe even a little bit more. I can't remember what it was in 24. So you're seeing a lack of the sponsorship funding, which would have helped. So between those two, that's probably $1,500 of the $3,000. And then the other one is, as you can see, we did really well for the auction, but in years past, the auction's been, 4, sometimes 5, and maybe I think even once it was $6,000. So the auction was low. We didn't have as many items to auction off this year. So we need, and Grant mentioned that. He said we probably need to do a better job of sourcing for some additional auction items next year so that we can get that number up to maybe $4,500. And then we need to, the sponsorship hopefully will be back in place next year. And then we should probably skip that room that we don't use. And the other thing I told Grant that I think we should do is we should set a deadline for, first of all, we shouldn't do pay at the door for tables. It's too late. We should make sure that funds arrive via check before the venue, before the date. And we give a deadline, like 2 weeks prior or something like that. Because we did have people who were on a waiting list for tables and we weren't able to accommodate them because it was too late day of to tell them that we had tables available. So I'm thinking if we give everybody up to 2 weeks prior to the show to pay, and if they don't pay by 2 weeks prior to the show, then that table would get sold to somebody that's on the waiting list. So that would mean that every one of our tables are sold. That wouldn't bump the number up a ton. It's only $200, $300 or something like that. But every little bit helps. So I'm going to stop for a second. I bet people have questions.
I have a simple question, which is,
Yeah.
The line for venue, that includes paying for the dinners?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. It does. Yes. It was an all-in number.
Okay.
Okay.
The line under that, you have an extra letter.
Venue additional. Is that? Oh, yeah, I do. I do. Yeah, sorry. Venue additional. Right. Okay.
Richard, the picky guy.
Nope, that's okay. Fair enough. Keep us on our toes. What other questions do folks have?
I have a question about attendance. Was it up or down from last year?
It seemed a little light. We had there was still a good, I would say we had over 100 people show up, but the prior year, I think we broke 100 we were in the 120s. So we were probably down, 10 to 15 people, maybe even 20 folks. So it was a little lighter, and it's not 20 people for sure, but I know we had a couple, 3 or 4 individuals, that I know of that were that would normally have come from Canada, but we're a little bit apprehensive about making the border crossing. What other questions do folks have?
I'm really sad to hear that was the reason those guys didn't show, because I thought it was like, I was hoping it wasn't related to politics. I'm really sad now because, and I know they don't think it's us, but
Yeah.
But that's just sad that impacted our gathering. It's kind of.
Yeah, it is. I mean, that's unfortunate. Well, and the sponsorship was also my understanding is for a similar reason.
Yeah.
So,
So I thought I heard you say something off. It really caught me off guard earlier, and I think you said something about it. And I was I'm rebuilding my machine here, so I don't have my calculator installed. But I think I heard you say something about that there was some money that is not accounted for. Yeah.
No, the money, it's not that the money is not accounted for. It's the fact that, so we sold $2,340 worth of tables. However, what I have a record of right now is the tables that were sold, but I have to go back and cross-reference that with all the payments that we received. Because
okay.
I know because Grant's got to help me with that. I haven't finished that yet, but so everybody that paid with PayPal are like the tables that were paid with PayPal. I know that those dollars actually showed up because that was an immediate transaction, and unless we refunded the money, then that was there. But we had a number of them that either came in via check, which those are probably fine, but then we had some that were pay day of. And so they were going to deliver us a check the day of the show. Well, they didn't show up. A couple of them didn't show up for the show. So then their table went unsold. So we didn't actually get that money. And there were about, I believe, 4 or 5 of those tables. And they were, I think, the 8-foot tables. So those are the $50 tables. And then on the flip side, and this is my fault. So I'm your humble treasurer to be, right? So I was trying to learn my ropes here. Somewhere here I got a piece of paper. There were like 4 or 5 people that bought dinner that day, and somewhere I wrote them down on a piece of paper, and now I'm trying to find the piece of paper. And those are $47 a piece. So that $1,500 for tables, or for dinners, really should be like $1,700, because there's another 4 or 5 people that paid for dinner, and the dinner was $47 a piece. So those two, the $50 tables, the 4 of them that didn't get paid for, and the 4 dinners that I forgotten to put in here, they kind of balance each other out. So the number is, it's close right now. So it's like $2,800. I'm probably off by $30 or $40 right now. So it's not so much I've lost money or I can't account for it. It's just I'm still trying to validate that every table that we actually sold, we actually received the money for. And then for people who paid for dinners the day of, I want to make sure that's recorded in here. But I didn't want to wait until next month. I got this part done. I thought I should make sure everybody understood where we were, at least directionally, and then I'll give another update next month when I've got the numbers fully vetted. What other questions? Or
I've got a comment, I guess, or maybe a little bit of discussion.
Yeah.
Grant was telling me that he didn't want to. I know the pay at the door he wanted to get rid of. I guess he talked about that. Yeah. But also the check thing. So it's almost like a Ticketmaster thing when this thing goes live for people to be able to get their tables. And some people think that it's unfair that they have to pay immediately, and then other people could just say, well, the check will be in the mail or whatever, and they can immediately get a table or get their choice of table at the time,
but not actually have to pay for it right away.
Right. And they that there's a little bit of unfairness in the system. Well, and are we working toward getting rid of checks altogether? I mean, is that reasonable in this day and age?
I mean, I'm sure everybody's got an opinion. I'm thinking, so historically, it seemed to me that there was a kind of tension in the club. So there was a lot of people who wanted us to take advantage of newer payment methods like PayPal and Venmo and whatnot. And then there was another group of folks that wanted to make sure that cash and check were still supported, because either they don't use the newer payment methods, or they had philosophical issues with for whatever reason they didn't want to use electronic methods like that. So I think that's why we previously had, we'd offered the new options for folks that wanted to pay via the digital methods, but we had continued to support, cash and check. I mean, I know from a treasury point of view, not having to take checks to the bank is always, or that's, I mean, that would be great. But I'm interested to hear what other people think about it.
Well, I think maybe what you need to do is put a comment somewhere on the Tandy list or whatever, that if you're paying by check, it must be in the treasurer's hands a certain amount of time before the fest starts, like a week or 2 weeks or whatever you want to say.
Right.
Or you could just put it in the terms and say that everything's prepay, period.
Yeah. Well,
put that right in the terms.
I would, so obviously, I say this even though I can't actually make a motion to do this, but I strongly encourage us to do that, to say all the tables have to be, they have to be paid for prior to the fest. I didn't think about Randy's thing, which is if I pay with a check, it's kind of like a credit card grace period, because I can wait, like I can, the tables went live on February 1st, I think, and the fest wasn't until like May 2nd. And so I could float, like I could go ahead and get a table on February 1st, even though I'm not exactly sure if I'm even going to come to the fest, but I've blocked my table, and then I can just stall on paying for it because I said I'm going to pay with a check until the day I go to show up at the show. And if I don't show up at the show, then there's no penalty for me, right? Because I didn't have to pay for the table. I said I was going to pay for the table, but then I didn't pay for the table. I'm not saying people actually do that, but that's an extreme case. But I think, Randy, your point is very valid in that if I don't know for sure, I can go ahead and get my favorite space, and then, I get to take my own sweet time. I'm thinking that not only, my thought, just hearing you guys, my thought would be is that to guard against that, if we're going to continue to support taking in checks, not only does it need to be prepaid, but it needs to be, to Rich's point, but maybe a little bit more strenuous. If you buy a table on February 1st, the check needs to be like to the treasurer by 7 days after that or something like that, because otherwise then people get to float on the tables for quite a while. So maybe instead of it just being paid for so many weeks before the fest starts, it needs to be so many days after you buy a table. If you buy a table on this date, then we'll give you 7 days to send us a check. But if you don't get us a check in 7 days, then you didn't actually pay for the table, so we'll give it to somebody else.
I was going to suggest something. I'm sorry.
Fair. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh,
yeah.
I was going to suggest that something similar to that, or you could put in a clause saying that if you reserve the table, you want to pay by check, you could say it's subject, that you could lose that spot because what if you have a surge of people who are going to pay or have the money, but they can't get a table, because the tables are sold out because somebody has one tied up.
So so if you pay with a check, you're provisionally allocated that table, but somebody could come in and pay for it immediately. Yep. Yeah. Part of that is can Randy build something like that in, or do you want to? I don't want to make this a Ticketmaster surge pricing.
It was like that come February 1st.
I know people were grabbing tables, fast and furious.
I think the 7 day period is a grace period is probably sufficient enough.
Yeah, I feel like there's two things here, and sorry, I'm kind of dominating the conversation. I apologize. I'll shut up. But I feel like the first thing that we need to make sure is that if we have 38 or 40 or however many tables we have, there should be, unless there's just no interest at all, which that's just not true and hasn't been for a couple of years, we should sell every table we have to sell, right? They should all be sold if they're all marked as sold, we should get all that money. I mean, the club should, we deserve that, right? You paid for, you bought a table, you should have paid for the table. Secondarily, I think the 7-day grace period or something like that would hopefully counteract people feeling like if they pay with PayPal that they're getting kind of penalized because other people get to float the purchase for a significant period of time. And so, maybe we do that first, and then maybe we reevaluate as to whether because we could just go and say, you know what, either you pay with PayPal or you don't pay, you don't get a table, right? If you want a table, you have to pay with electronic means. And if the club wants to do that, I think we can, that's pretty easy to build into the site.
Well, you know that I think using the PayPal method, you can put in a check. If you don't want to use a credit card, you can put a check in and it works just the same.
Got it.
But if you just are anti-electronic completely, I mean, that's a different story. And you might say that your table won't be reserved. You can send a check in with your preferred table numbers or whatever, but it's not going to be reserved. And then therefore you're rolling the dice by mailing a check in. That might be another way.
Okay.
Yeah, the thing about paying by check via PayPal, I mean, again, what Jim was mentioning before was there's people that don't want to use PayPal or not using PayPal, so that would be a problem.
Yeah.
We haven't had many people who want to pay by check, to be honest. I mean, it's a handful, I think.
Yeah. I'm trying to look here on the tables, for instance. So we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people that paid with that indicated they were going to pay with a check. And I know one of them was Mark Marlette, and he absolutely did pay. So I know that one. So it's basically 3 people was 3 tables, sorry, other than Mark that paid with check. So, but anyway.
To put in my 2 cents.
Yeah.
It was about 3 or 4 years ago. I had some bad experiences with PayPal.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're something about their company is I think they've got some sleepers in there that are passing out the data or something like that. Because back then I was getting fake emails that supposedly came from PayPal but did not, at least not officially, but it might have been somebody working for PayPal who knew the ropes and was fishing for undeserved income. And so I canceled my account with PayPal and tried not to use it. But last year I decided, well, nowadays they say you can pay through PayPal without having an account there. So I decided to try that for paying what I bought, which was just the dinners and dues.
Mm-hmm.
And within 10 minutes, I got one of these phishing emails addressed to me, supposedly from PayPal. Jeez. And of course, I just deleted it right away. So it didn't harm me, but it makes me very uneasy to use PayPal, frankly. Because I don't know where the leak is. It's up to PayPal to make sure that people aren't doing that.
Right.
I don't know there are people that inside PayPal or outside.
I mean, we went through a vendor selection a few years ago about deciding who our merchant would be. We even looked at the bank to see it. The thing is, when you work with the bank, they want a particular minimum that they're going to charge for per month, and there was going to be an ongoing fee for because we only use them like once or Actually, we use them a little more for dues, but we would never hit that monthly minimum, and it would be very costly to go directly through the bank.
Yeah.
I don't know if at the time I think there was another one, Square, that we looked into.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think Venmo was around, although Venmo's, I think, owned by PayPal.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm not arguing for dumping PayPal. I'm arguing for keeping the option of using checks.
checks directly.
Yeah.
That's what I guess my thought is if I'm not sure I'm not sure that I want to necessarily pull on the string of getting rid of checks, even though it would definitely make some pieces of this easier. But I do think that if we've promised to table to somebody, and they paid, if we promise to table to somebody, then we should be the club. It seems appropriate that the club should be getting the money for that table. And if the person doesn't show up, that's unfortunate. I mean, we'd love for them to come, but life happens. And so if something happens, like I know a couple of years, there's been a death in the family or somebody's sick or whatever. And if people let us know in enough time, then we can try and sell their table to somebody else, and that's fine. And if it was a really nasty situation, maybe we refund the funds. But I do think, I know Grant was a little perturbed that we had what looked like 4 or so tables that we not only we sold, but we didn't get any money for. And especially given that we're a little light on our, over under this year, that would have helped, the $50 a table. So I would like to make sure that we get that money in the treasury.
So Jim, if you do like a week or something,
yeah,
it seems like, I mean, how are we going to manage that? I mean, somebody's.
I'm not. I mean, I think Grant, you maybe a couple of us should go off and come up with I didn't figure we'd solution it today. I'm sorry
okay. Yeah, and I'm sorry. Yeah, you're right.
I just wanted to point out that we probably, I mean, you make a good point in that we want people to feel like the tables are doled out in a fair manner. So this past year was pretty good. I mean, it came out and the tables just like disappeared real quick. So, that was fine. Last year was a real problem. So what I don't want to have happen is a repeat of last year, 2023. So if you remember, Randy, I think you started up the site, but you'd made a lot of changes and you wanted to verify that they were working. And so you gave a link to the live site to Grant. And then Grant gave it to a few of us and said, hey, can you make sure that the site's working okay? Well, the link got passed around and a bunch of people went ahead and registered tables before they were actually officially like available to everybody. And then there were a bunch of people who felt like they didn't get a fair shake at getting a table, right? And so I told Grant this year, I said, oh, we can't do that again. I mean, I'm not saying he did it on purpose, and he wasn't trying to be malicious. He said, Randy's made changes to the site, and we're worried it's going to blow up. So he knew, I think I sent it to me, and he said, I know you're going to get a table anyway, so could you run it through its paces and make sure that it works? And I'm thinking, well, sure, I'll buy the table. So I bought the table, but I didn't pass the link around to anybody else, but I think it got passed around to a few people. And then you had a whole bunch of people that were buying tables ahead of time. And then when people saw that tables were gone before the official start of tables, then they got upset. So I just want to make sure that everybody feels like they got a fair shake at grabbing a table.
Yep. That's the policy from now on. We have actual launch dates.
Yeah, right. So anyway, I don't know necessarily where I think this was initially started with David's question about whether we have any lost money, but I like I said, I'll validate. I got to go through line by line in the PayPal and validate that, all of the bank account, and make sure that all the checks cleared and we got all that money in. And so I'll have a better handle on it for next month. But realistically, it's not going to be much different than the $2,800 that we see. So we need to find a way, we need to find a way to either make we probably need to go both directions. We need to bring in a little bit more money from the show, and we need to get the cost of the show itself down a little bit. The lanyards are getting expensive, and they're nice, but what we might do, and that's probably my fault. I thought the lanyards were really cool, and I think everybody likes them, but they're almost $400. So probably either come up with something else next year, or maybe get that sponsored so that so that we don't have that charge. Try to work on getting a sponsorship. Try to get more auction stuff. Now there's 100 people, and I know somebody's going to ask this, so I'm just gonna kind of head it off at the pass, I suppose. We have about 40 tables, and so everybody that buys a table gets like a membership to the. I mean, your table includes a membership. But it used to be that if you didn't buy a table and you were just an attendee, you would pay $15 to come in, and that funded part of the show too. But while we could go back to charging admission, realistically, we probably have 50 people that that would maybe be, well, maybe not that many. How many people you think would be? Because you get a family membership with a table, so like people like Bruce Moore and his son, that's already covered because they bought a table. So if we say maybe 40 people, you guys think that's a good number for people that would attend but not buy a table? At most, that'll bring in another $600. So we could go back to charging admission, but that's not going to get us all the way there. We're going to have to do some other things as well.
I was going to say, if it comes to it, I'll pay for my membership separate from the table. But that's just me.
Yeah, and I mean,
I would do the same thing with here too.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm not necessarily looking to solution it. I'm just saying, the attendance fee, didn't necessarily. It'll make a little bit of a dent, more than I actually thought it would. $600 is nothing to sneeze at. So maybe when it gets a little closer to the 26 Fest, because previously we voted to do free admission. We want to go back to charging admission, then we could pick up another $600. That is just, my point was, it won't get us all the way there. We'll have to make some other adjustments too.
I think it's also a good idea to offer sponsorships for the lanyards, because that would take the cost down quite a bit.
Yeah, I was surprised. I remember when I guess they're only $300, but still, I think when I did them the first year, they were only like $125, but I didn't realize that was like introductory pricing. So, and Bob set that up. He had a friend, and I think the friend gave us a really good deal that first year because it was a friend of Bob's. So
how much is that per lanyard, do you think?
I think it's like $1.75 per lanyard.
So wouldn't it be cool, I think, if we just added as part of the registration, you can have a souvenir lanyard, have your name printed, and it's $5 to have that, and then we can make a little money off of it and cover the cost.
You can't do so. I mean, not to try and solution, but if you buy a lanyard, you buy them and they all have to do the same. You can't. It's not like you put a name on an individual lanyard, right?
So I was at a con here in Chicago, and they printed up circuit boards for lanyards. I think circuit boards would be a lot cheaper than.
Yeah, they would actually. That's funny.
Yeah, and I got a bunch of 6309 fake processors. You can actually use them put them on the circuit board.
Well, I'll make sure Grant here. I'll make sure Grant listens to the show, because those would be great ideas for him for next year.
You can also get them 3D printed too. I mean, if you want to do a sponsorships,
Yeah.
People.
So, I just realized maybe I'm miscommunicating what I'm talking about. The lanyard is not the piece of plastic that people wear. It's not the piece of plastic with your name on it. That's not what costs $300. It's the fabricy thing that went around your neck.
Strap.
Oh, yeah. Really?
Yeah. That thing that Brian's got. That's what I'm talking about.
We got to be able
Sorry.
to get them cheaper than that.
And maybe so. Maybe so.
And I think maybe what Randy was saying is not that they would be printed uniquely for each one, but if you want to get this, then you pay
The
for
whole
it. If
thing.
you don't pay for one, then you don't get a lanyard. But maybe
Oh,
we
I
don't
got
want
it.
to go. Maybe we don't want to go that route.
Got it. Yeah. So currently, I mean, I could probably work it up what the cost is, but I just buy and donate the plastic cards and the printer ribbon for the actual badges, I guess is what I'd call them, the little piece of plastic. So you're not going to see a charge for that. I've always just done that just free for the club.
Well, it would also encourage people to register, because since there isn't a payment to get in the door, it would be kind of struggle to get people just to pre-register.
That's true. That's true.
And if it's part of that process, that could help.
That's true. Well, I don't want to discount any options. On the other hand, I don't know that I want to pick any right now, because Grant needs to think about. Well, all of us do. We think about it. They're good ideas. They're all good ideas. I mean, I don't want to. I think the key is we do want to make. I think our goal is to make sure that the show breaks even every year. So we're a little light this year, so we'll have to make some adjustments for next year. I don't want to get too caught up on specific line items. The other thing I don't want to do is I don't want people to think, and maybe this analogy is going to not be relevant for everybody, but I don't want this to be like Spirit Airline, right? Where you have to, like if you want a seat, you have to pay for it. And if you want to actually go to the bathroom, you got to pay extra money and, stuff like that. I think they actually let you go to the bathroom for free, but they nickel and dime you, like everything that you want to do on the airline, you gotta pay a little bit of money.
That's actually a good idea. We can offer, the vendors, they get a table, but for an additional $50, they get chairs.
See, this is Richard. This is why we take your suggestions with a grain of salt.
Yes.
So thank you for your suggestion. So
thank you. You're welcome.
Anyway,
one thing I'd like to say, Jim, just one more thing is that the amount of money that we may gain from charging at the door for attendance, and the hassle we got to do to have people line and sign up and do and run the card at the door and everything is, I don't think it would be worth it.
Well,
I agree. Being the one who was at the door several years.
Right. Right.
It was so nice not to have to do that.
And maybe what we do is, and I mean, again, not trying to, I know I just said I wasn't trying the solution, but an idea, if we think we would get $600 from people signing in the door, maybe we just say, you know what, somebody sponsor us for $600 so we don't have to do it. So we get the money and it's a wash, right? But I agree. It was really nice this year. I'll be honest. It was really nice. I printed out all the badges and I put them there at the front table and we put the lanyards there, and people just came by as they, because everybody's got a different mode. Like some people want to immediately find their table and some people want to, everybody has a different way of doing this. It was nice. People could come in and grab their badge and their lanyard, and if they didn't have it, people knew, oh, go over to Jim, he's got a printer, he'll print one out for you, or you got his name wrong, we'll go ahead and reprint it. That worked out super well. And having to have somebody stand at the table and just work on all that and print out receipts and all that is a lot of effort and not a lot. And that's somebody who's not able to enjoy the event because they're kind of stuck at the table. However, anecdotally, I did want to share this one thing. I know we ought to talk about the show in general. I didn't mean to spend the whole time talking about the finances, but so everybody seemed to be able to find the table with the badges, except for one individual who I believe came and I think they paid membership dues. And Eric, I think this is the one you sent me, where they sent a note to the club saying that they were very disappointed because there wasn't somebody at the table that they could, get their badge and and whatnot, and they couldn't find their badge, and so then they were upset. And so I said, "Well, I'm sorry. We'll fix it. Just come on in, and I was at lunch. I said, I'll be back from lunch in about 20 minutes, and I'll be printing out a badge." But evidently, it had affected them so much they left the venue and they didn't come back. So there was one disgruntled attendee.
Yeah, it's that kind of thing. I don't think there's any way to fix it. I think they were just looking for something to be upset about.
Yeah.
But because even if it was fully attended and you went to the bathroom, the same thing could have happened.
Right. So outside of the financials, which I think we've kind of beat to death, do people have any comments, good or bad, like we did it Friday, Saturday this year as opposed to Saturday, Sunday? I think Grant canvassed a bunch of people at the show. It seemed like people were reasonably okay with it being on Friday and Saturday. So was there any, I guess, on that topic or any other topics for the show? Any comments?
I really like the badge. I wonder who designed it.
Wallace. Sorry, Ron DeVoe designed the badge. So, and I don't know that I thanked him. So thanks, Ron. I'll have to put a note in the. I'll put a note in the Facebook page.
I really liked the Friday, Saturday. I thought it spread things out a little bit, and so the pace was a little bit more relaxed. It wasn't quite, boom, 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 right from one thing to the other, trying to squeeze everything in there. I actually, and I'll volunteer myself again next year to help with the auction. I actually kind of enjoyed being in the room there, helping sort things and stuff like that. So that was actually kind of a fun experience helping out with that. So I enjoyed that. And then a shout out to Randy. I thought that everything went very smoothly from a video perspective. It seemed like everything worked really well this year, and that new projector was a good investment.
Which, by the way, Grant asked, I did not put the projector cost in this total tally because I felt like that was a little unfair to assign it to one fest. We're going to use it for hopefully 10 or so fests, right, Randy?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so we're going to. Before I forget, Randy, there was one video that got chopped off early. I think it was Henry Strickland's or something. And did you update the new one?
No, I'm sorry. I've been working on that. I had to get eye surgery, so I had a hard time working on videos for a bit. But I'll get that up as soon as possible.
Okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
One other thing I had a comment on was for next year, work with me on the QR code things for the URLs and everything, because I want to set up a special URL just for that so that it's outside of the normal thing, and I might make it a little nicer for the vendors or whatever, because that was really just for I saw what you did. I thought it was great. But maybe we can come up with something that maybe looks a little better on a phone, so for that kind of thing. And
that's fine. We'll do.
Yeah,
can do. That's easy. That's an easy one.
Yep.
Okay. What else? Greg, I would ask you about the show, but you didn't even bother coming. So,
well, it just didn't fit into my schedule this year, but I will do everything I can to make it to the next one. So
good. I'm going to hold you to it. Sorry, Richard. What did you have?
I was going to say, I actually like being there on Friday, Saturday, because then you leave on Sunday and the traffic isn't so bad leaving out of Chicago compared to Monday morning. If you stay overnight, and most of us usually do. But I actually did like the format better.
Okay. Rich, Brian?
I was going to
mention, go ahead.
I kind of like the paper handout for the schedules for the seminars. It's easier to access than pull out your phone trying to scan something, but that's my preference.
Okay, good to know. Sorry, Richard, you had another item?
No, I was just going to mention, I said I think the other advantage, it might be airfare might be a little bit cheaper instead of flying out Monday morning than flying out Sunday.
Got it.
Also might be a difference.
Okay. Eric, Chris,
Yeah, no,
Rich?
no complaints here. I think it went pretty well.
Okay. I think if
I
there's
actually ended up
anybody.
eating. I actually ended up eating most of my meals right there at the restaurant, and at the hotel, I should say, at the restaurant. And I know some people kind of frown about that a little bit, but I thought they did an excellent job, and you know, I had a good time.
Okay.
Yeah,
John Mark?
they got a good
Oh.
burger.
I thought the food at the restaurant was as good as any other restaurant, in the area.
John Mark?
Yeah, what?
Mr. VP? Any comments on the show?
It was good. It was good. I didn't mind the Friday Saturday thing. It worked out okay.
Okay.
Well, Friday, Saturday was good for me because Nancy and I never came to the show on Sunday. Once we moved away, instead of taking off church on Sunday to go to the show, we take off from the show and go to church, go to our old church. So that's what I did. So it worked out well. I could go to both days, actually.
That's right.
But I had to stay an extra day to go back on Monday, but that's all right.
Brian?
Brian Weisler?
Yes, sorry. Do I have another Brian?
No, no, that's fine. I just wanted. I made the comment about the restaurant.
Oh, I do have another Brian. Sorry.
Yep,
okay,
no
you're
worries.
right. Sorry.
Yep, no worries.
And I also think that doing the Friday Saturday, I think the amount of retention or people interest was good on Friday and also good on Saturday, because Sunday is always, every convention that I've gone to, Sundays is usually by 10 o'clock noon, everybody is like, packing up and leaving. So,
right.
I think it was just better. Like Sunday morning, I had everything almost packed up and I left Sunday morning. So again, I did like the new format.
I mean, I'll be honest, when I know we talked about it a couple years on a Coco Talk episode that I joined, and there was a talk about, how do we get people to stay longer on Sunday so that, people feel like Sunday's a day that it makes sense to come to the fest, because that was a problem, right? People were packing up early and leaving, and then of course people realized that people were packing up and leaving early, so they would pack up and leave early, and then people who didn't even have tables were saying, well, it seems like every year people are packing up and leaving early on Sunday, so I'm just not going to bother to come on Sunday. So there was kind of this self-fulfilling prophecy, right? And so that was a question, and one of the items was, can we switch the days to, to something else? And so this was an attempt to do that. I wasn't sure how people would, it didn't bother me one way or the other, either way, but then again, I don't live that far away from the venue. But I will say that I found it was a much more calm and less stressful time on Sunday packing up, because you're packing up, you want to make sure you get all your stuff because some of it's important to you, and then you also want to be able to say goodbye to everybody and maybe grab food with them or whatever. But you're kind of, if you do all that really fast, like in the evening, then you're kind of stressed about making sure you're doing everything and you've settled up at the hotel and you've gotten all your stuff out of the venue and you've said goodbye to the people you want to say goodbye to and whatnot. So I did like having more of a calm, collected Sunday. But I know there were some folks that weren't as wild about the Friday Saturday. I forget, Grant had some commentary from a couple folks that was not as favorable to the day. So if you hear one way or the other from folks, I'm sure make sure, try to get that information back to Grant as we move to next year. And I should tell you that, sorry, I'm trying to find my window here, but Grant told me, hot off the presses, don't completely quote me on this, but for the 2026 show, he gave me the dates. Does April 25 and 26 make sense? So like a Friday and Saturday? Dang it. it? Anyone?
April 26th is a Sunday.
Okay, so it's April 24th. Yeah, just as you said that, I found that link. April 24th and 25th is the tentative dates for next year. So pencil that in on your calendar. Potentially subject to change, but I doubt it.
Hey, so this is David D. I was just also going to just make a quick comment. I thought the Friday, Saturday thing also worked out great.
Oh, great.
I felt like kind of the same thing on Sunday. That was like a no rush thing. I didn't feel like I was going to miss anything trying to check out, like you were saying, and trying to get organized. Felt like there was time to do all that. And then even with the previous Cocoa Fest, always had anxiety, like you said, about, because sometimes I would leave Monday morning. Other days I would like head out on the same day because you just want to get home, you know? And it's like the teardowns at 3 p.m. There is a short window of flights coming back to the West Coast that are at discount rates. If you start getting, it's kind of like, I think it's like, I almost want to call it like rush hour at the airport, because they all come at the same time. You can't really get something reasonable. If you want to fly at some odd time, it's just going to be $500 more. And, you know, if you want to do that, great. But it's like you're trying to minimize. It's kind of like what we were talking about a few minutes ago. He's trying to keep the cost down. So, and then you've got that time to lollygag to the airport and not have to worry about missing anything. And you, like you said, might be able to get a bite to eat. And, you know, it really worked out great. So thanks for doing it.
Thank Grant. If you see Grant, give him a thanks, because he was the one that came up with the idea, or at least figured it all out and set it up. And I know he was happy for the venue. He was happy for the venue date change because he was able to schedule more presentations this year, because we had Friday presentations for the majority of the day, and then Saturday was all the way up until the auction on Saturday afternoon. And then nobody got stuffed on Sunday morning. That was always a kind of a, people didn't really want the Sunday morning slots because there wasn't a lot of people that would come early in the morning, and that was really the only slots that we had for Sunday. So he was super stoked. But he did bring up one thing, which we will, again, every action has a reaction, right? So Randy did a great job of recording all of the presentations, and Randy has done a great job recording and streaming all of the presentations. However, people now know that Randy is doing a great job at recording and streaming the presentations. So people are choosing not to go to the presentations because they know they can go online and watch them later.
Thanks, Randy. Thanks, Randy.
Yeah. Thanks a lot, Randy. So anyway, Grant brought that up, and I'm like, oh, and I'm kind of guilty of that too, because I usually try to stay in the main room, just to kind of keep an eye on it, and also if people need a badge or something like that, I'm there. And I think, oh, that's okay, because I can watch the presentations later. So I don't know really what to do about that, but that's turned out to be an issue.
I can start sucking at it if you want.
No, I didn't say that. And it's probably my fault, because I was the one who initially was like, you know what, we really need to record the presentations. They're good, and you know, for whatever reason, if you can't join the presentation, or you weren't able to join the show, like Greg, like you, I'm sure you wanted to, but you weren't able to, right? Circumstances. I mean, I love to provide a wider audience to the material that's being presented, because it's good stuff. So I still don't regret choosing to let's record and save off the presentations for posterity. And I'm glad that Randy does a great time, or a great job doing it.
Yeah, I would totally agree, and also for preservation of. Yeah, and just making sure that it's captured for just historical purposes, because we're not going to be here forever. So
right.
It's probably, I mean, I learned a lot of new things in some of those presentations, so it'd be great to make sure that other people have access to it.
You know, other
And I was there.
other conferences have this problem. I mean, like I'm sure, like Microsoft, I'm sure that, or because I used to go to their build, and I'm like, well, you know, I can watch all the presentations online, you know, so what? And they do it, stream it for free. I might not be able to watch it that day, but I can watch it the next day. And it's good enough. So
I know.
I don't know how to get around this.
Well, I was guess. I mean, again, you know, don't want to find a solution. I do know that I've been to a number of those events, and you're right. You know, it's like, okay, I can, you know, I'm going to get a link to the proceedings for the entire conference later. So do I really need to go to this particular session? I know that sometimes they have like you have when you're badge, you have your own QR code, and they'll you know you'll scan your QR code when you go to the session, and then you know sometimes there's stuff, you know, you're eligible for something, or you know, kind of they gamify the going to the thing. I don't know if that's something we want to do, but yeah, you know, creating maybe a little bit more incentive for people to, you know, because here's the thing, Grant wasn't worried so much about the fact that people weren't coming to the presentation per se. What he was concerned about is the fact that, so say you're a presenter and you spent, you know, we spent a long time doing something, and then you spent probably a couple of weeks putting a neat presentation together to show people what it is. And then you get set up in the presentation room and like 3 people trickle in to watch the presentation that, you know, during the presentation time. Well, the problem with that is that's kind of demoralizing, right? For the person who spent a bunch of time putting the presentation together, because their first thought is nobody cares, right? Which is not exactly true. I mean, it could be true, but most likely it's, yeah, there was another 20 people that would have come to the presentation, but since they can view it later, they went somewhere else. So they figure they can do multitasking. So I thought the first thing we might do is just to let people know that, you know, it's great that we have the presentations, you know, available later, but it really would be nice if you could come to the presentation and show support for the individual that put the material together. Because I didn't even think about that until till Grant told me that. And I'm like, crap, I'm guilty of it too. And we probably need to make people aware of it.
It was nice having the PA there, and they were making the announcements that the presentations were going to start. I don't know if that affected attendance or not, but at least for some of them, at least knowing that it was going to begin.
I tried to get on the mic and pop and get people to come out, but you know,
I'll be honest. I think we need, and maybe Randy, this is something. Now that you bring that up, you were using Bruce Moore's microphone on the one end of the venue, but it did not cover the whole venue. So you could hear it if you were about a third of the way over from where Bruce's table was. But if you got 2/3 or all the way over on the other side of the room, you couldn't hear it. And so,
oh really? Huh.
Yeah. So okay. I think we need something that, I mean, I hate to say it, but we kind of need a microphone that's like the voice of God, right, in that room, and you know, like attention, you know, and so it needs to be really loud because, yeah, I mean, Brian Schubering sometimes brings his big setup, but he wasn't able to come this year, so we didn't have that capability. And I think Bruce's system was fine for what he was doing, but it was a little light for getting all the way across the room. So we probably ought to think about that for next year.
Okay.
So where can I find these wonderful presentations?
They are in a link. I sent a link if you're on the mailing, if you're in the COCO mailing list, or you're on the Facebook page, or you can go to glensideccc.com, which surely one of those will work for you. The link, I put the link in all 3 of those places, and it goes to a playlist. So there's a playlist on YouTube for all except for one. I didn't put Henry Strickland's. I think it's Henry's. I didn't put his in because it's truncated. So as soon as Randy gets
that's the one I wanted to watch.
I know it would be, right?
My bad. I'm sorry.
You crazy. Why would you schedule eye surgery?
You know?
I mean, geez. So anyway, I still think it was a good fest. I mean, I know the big the big takeaway is we're probably threatening to be the fact that it didn't break even. But Grant sent me a note today, and he said he's not overly concerned about it. We'll make some adjustments, and we'll fix this for next year. So no big deal. We'll just keep it in mind. But I do think it seemed like it was a very well attended and enjoyed fest. So, secondary. I mean, that's one of the more important things too. And I know I kept everybody over an hour, and I apologize, but I do not have any other topics for this evening. So if other people do, bring them up. Otherwise, I'm gonna ask for a motion to close the meeting.
Well, if anybody's interested, I found an $1,800 Coco tree setup.
Go buy it. You need to buy it.
$1,800? You kidding me?
It's a steal. It's a steal.
Yeah.
Well, it's a steal.
Yeah, steal for me if I were to pay that much. Holy smokes!
He started out at 21. I pinged him and
Really?
gave him a realistic price, and he basically came back to me and said that to go pound sand. So
does it
Oh, you've
include the
seen that
New
one,
York Times, little terminal thing?
right? Yeah.
Early on, I had suggested that the theme of the show be the year of the Coco Cat. And I was told we're not going to have a theme, but then someone made a flyer for the Coco Fest and it had the Coco Cat on it. And then the badge came out and the Coco Cat was on it. So I'm like, somebody's listening.
Ron was listening. Ron took your advice. I think, and that's probably something we need to probably support Grant better. Just as a aside, I think Grant, he put some effort into previous years on the theme and didn't really get a lot of traction from all of us. I think we were all just focused on it's the fest and we're going to get there and we're going to have our stuff and we're going to show off our stuff and we're going to chat with people. And so, I mean, there's a lot of people come for different reasons. So there wasn't a ton of traction on the theme. And so I think he got a little bit disillusioned with putting effort into the theme and then not really having people kind of incorporate the theme into their exhibits or their presentations or whatever. So it's probably all of ours fault a little bit. And so if we want a theme next year, I think we need to probably, work to try and incorporate that theme into the exhibits and the presentations so that Grant feels a little bit more love on his theme. I'm not sure what the theme will be next year if there's going to be one, but maybe we'll prod him to come up with a theme next year and give him some more love on incorporating it into our stuff. But I'm glad the Coco Cat was there for you, John Mark.
Yeah, and he was orange. I think I even found that orange image in one of the magazines and gave it to Grant B.
Oh,
and
okay.
Maybe Grant B sent it over. I don't know.
You may have, or you may get it to Grant
Coco
L.
Cat with a cane, walking with a cane or a walker.
that probably applicable to how old he is for
Yeah.
But anyway, anything else? Okay.
I'm going to be going, guys. So
Okay, well, I'm looking
any
for
meeting?
a motion
to close the meeting.
Okay, Greg is and Richard, I believe, seconded. So
Yes.
do I have a affirmation of that?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay. Well, I will see you all in July. I might actually take July off. Maybe I can convince John Mark to run the meeting, but either way, one way or another, I'll see you in the future.
All right, guys, take care.
Yeah.
See you all next month.